We hear it all the time. We're living in an overweight and obese world.
You probably already know the health risks that can come with carrying extra weight: heart disease, stroke, diabetes, just to name a few. You don't want to have to deal with any of that, and you certainly don't want your kids to.
But the truth is, many children these days do face those dangers. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention website reports childhood obesity has more than doubled in children over the last 30 years. It has tripled in adolescents. The American Heart Association reports almost 13 million children are obese.
Now let's break that down locally. Studies show in Delaware 32% of children ages 10 to 17 were overweight or obese in 2011, the latest figures. That number was almost 32% in Maryland, and it was almost 30% in Virginia. So how can we get those numbers to go in the other direction? Joining us today to help us fight the childhood obesity epidemic is pediatric nurse practitioner Jerry Clayville with 3 Lower Counties Community Services. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me here today.
First of all, let's clear things up. The difference between obese and overweight.
Well, when we look at it as clinical practitioners, we look at height and weight measurements, and one of the other measures that's very important to us is the body mass index.
Okay.
And when we look at the body mass index, we consider the child to be overweight if the BMI, or the body mass index, is between 85 to 94%, which is basically 120% above the ideal body weight. And then for obesity, we say basically anywhere from 95% on the BMI and above, or basically more than 150% of the ideal body weight.
Okay, so there's the numbers for the BMI, and here's the weight that you're talking about: more than 120%, more than 150%.
Right.
Wow, how about that? So at what age do we really consider the child, well, this is past the chubby stage, we got a problem here?
Well, we start actually basically paying a lot more attention to the kids that are 2 years and above. However, there has been a shift in that focus to also look at infants, because we realize that this problem can also be starting in infancy, especially from 6 months on, 4 to 6 months on. So we look for trends in disparity between that height-weight ratio. And because of that, we actually will start looking to change up things, you know, or help making recommendations to the parents to make those changes. For example, try promoting breastfeeding for at least 6 months. Also making sure that they don't introduce any solid foods until like 6 months of age. Avoid the implementation of fruits and fruit juices until much later on, and even then smaller quantities, and for example, you know, so we start even then, because we realize that an overweight infant may end up being an overweight child.
And let's look at the overall picture. Why do you think kids are overweight? Is it the food that we're feeding them?
Well, it's multifactorial. I mean, you look at our snacks that parents give our kids, there are a lot of times unhealthy snacks. There's a big emphasis on high-calorie foods because, well, they taste good, you know, and plus they're easily accessible. And we look at all those issues, you know, that are involved with that, and it's just a multi-dimensional thing. Sedentary activities, you know, your effects on your mood, depression, anxiety, and those type of things. Also excessive, the big thing now is excessive TV and video use, because that promotes that sedentary lifestyle, and the kids don't get up and move.
Now, you mentioned depression and such. Emotions are really a big part of this.
Right, because once you're there, you know, you realize that you're different, and, you know, and then you realize people treat you differently.
Right.
And that can't help to affect your self-esteem and your relationship with your peers. You may not be able to keep up with your friends. You realize that there is differences. And then you get depressed about that situation, and that leads to a lot of anxiety. So it's like a big snowball effect.
Yes.
And so it's not an easy issue to deal with. It's a very, you know, simple thing that we look at to be done. You just don't eat as much, but it's much more involved in that.
You know, when we think about obesity and health risks, we always think of adults, but there really are health risks for children or obese?
Well, and many of them mirror adults.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're looking at obstructive sleep apnea, you look at type 2 diabetes. We actually see kids developing type 2 diabetes now, where in the past, I don't know if it's because we never looked for it, but basically we can see those tendencies like with insulin resistance, which leads to type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular changes like we would see with hypertension, weird things like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, where the fat actually infiltrates the liver. You can look at Pink-Winkin syndrome. There's just a variety, GERD. There's just a variety, a plethora of illnesses that are related to obesity.
Okay, so as parents, what can we do to keep our kids healthy?
Well, the big thing, is to adopt the principles I like to tell parents of 5-2-1-0. Basically, with that, you're looking at 5 vegetables and fruits a day, with the emphasis more on veggies, because veggies, you get more bang for your buck out of the veggies.
Right.
Limit your screen time to at least 2 hours or less a day, and that includes video, TV, all those type of things with that. And at least 1 hour of exercise a day, and then 0 sugary drinks. More emphasis on milk, and water.
All right, Jerry Clayville, thank you so much. Of course, we
Well,
need to
thank
lead
you.
by example.
Lead by example.
And if you'd like to learn more about Three
Thank you
Lower
very much.
Counties Community Services, go to delmarvalife.com and click on the Show tab.
Now, another big part of staying healthy is taking care of our eyes. After all, they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. What doctors saw in this baby's eyes that led them to a diagnosis of a rare cancer. And wait till you hear how they spotted it. They didn't have to use any expensive medical tests.
And many people use eye drops to take care of their eyes, but are you using them properly? You might not be. We'll learn some do's and don'ts when it comes to those drops.
But first, we just learned about obesity. Dr. Oz says eating healthy can also go a long way in keeping your back in check.
Hi, I'm Dr. Oz. Back pain is the second most common reason for doctor's visits. Here's what you can do. Stick to a healthy weight and keep your muscles loose by stretching before you exercise. Choose a good mattress that supports the curve of your spine. Practice good posture. Bring your head and your neck back and breathe in to tighten your gut.